Hello fellow sim racers and welcome to another video. Today we'll be checking out the Lamborghini SC63 LMDh car in both Le Mans Ultimate and Automobilista 2. I'm driving them back to back so we can see how do they compare to each other. I've matched weather, time, track conditions and setups as closely as I could, and we're running at Imola at 6 PM in mostly cloudy weather. In both sims we're running the default setups on medium tires and half a tank of fuel. The video is split into three main parts, one out lap, one flying lap, both of these in cockpit POV, and then we can also see them in third person and TV cameras as well. After each part, I will share my thoughts, but the laps themselves will be uninterrupted. I hope you enjoy the video. Let's go! Okay, we're kicking things off with the Lamborghini in AMS2. As we're exiting the pits, you can see the car immediately being nervous and losing traction on throttle, as you would expect. You can feel the lack of grip, and you definitely have to take it easy these first corners, especially under acceleration. So it's all looking good so far, but this is where, in my opinion, things are starting to be a little bit questionable, and there are two main things that I observed. First, I think the tires feel as if they're getting up to temperature far too quickly. I'm not talking about the actual temperature in both surface and carcass, I'm actually talking about how they feel. So if you look at the telemetry, the tires are still cold, but all this sensation of lack of grip and you having to be very careful. It's kind of gone by the time you reach maybe turn 5 or 6 here at Imola. From that point onwards, I can feel I can push comfortably on these tires. Obviously the lap times are still slower as the tires are technically cold, however they just feel as if they're up to temperature already. Now the second point is how this lack of grip is translated to me as a driver and what kind of adjustments I need to make during these outlaps, but I will cover that when I touch on LMU. Okay, now switching to Le Mans Ultimate, and when it comes to the cold tires behavior, things are slightly different on this one. Now, getting out of the pits, obviously you still have no grip and you can feel the lack of temperature in the tires, similar to AMS2. However, the way you have to change your driver inputs is different compared to AMS2. In AMS2, you can feel the lack of grip, but you can only feel it pretty much on throttle. Yeah, when it comes to the driver inputs in terms of turning or braking, the tires feel pretty much as if they're up to temperature already. Now, Le Mans Ultimate, that's not the case. You can feel massive understeer. You basically turn the wheel and the car does not want to turn at all. You can feel the wheel is super light and the car is just washing wide, and you have to be so careful. On top of that, braking is also different. Now in AMS2, when it comes to braking on cold tires, yes, you have to brake a little bit earlier, but in terms of the brake pressure, I use pretty much the same one. Le Mans Ultimate, however, is different. If you try to use the same brake pressure on the outlap as you would in lap 1, 2 or 3, you will end into the gravel trap. You have to adjust your braking in a sense that you have to brake earlier, but at the same time you have to use far less brake pressure. The other difference obviously is that when it comes to Le Mans Ultimate, unlike the AMS2, the cold tires do not last 2 or 3 corners only. In fact, even on lap 2, right after the outlap, you can still feel that the tires are not up to temperature, the grip is not there, so you still have to be careful. Now, think how these cars race in real life and think about the outlaps. These cars are notoriously difficult to drive on cold tires. This also plays a big part in teams' strategies, because when it comes to overcut and undercut and defining your strategy for these endurance races, these outlaps on cold tires are critical for the team strategies, because the lap time you lose during these laps can make or break your race. And now onto the flying laps. Okay, so now moving on to the laps where the tires were more or less up to temperatures. So what I did was I did an out lap with both of them, then I did a second lap, and then I recorded the third lap, which is the one that you're seeing here. Both of them were on medium tires, and when it comes to the lap time, again, I was not chasing the delta. I don't know if this lap time is good or not. Obviously, I tried to push as much as I could, but this was not like a hot lap that I've done 100 laps. It was literally 3 laps in both of them just to see how things compare. The main differences now here was that obviously the tires in AMS2, they got up to temperature much quicker, and in terms of the lap time, even though I was not chasing the delta, I did compare them afterwards, and I had to do 1 extra lap in Le Mans Ultimate in order for me to match the lap time I did in AMS2. And I think this comes down to the fact that the tires in AMS2 are just getting up to temperature far quicker. So I did also lap 4 in Le Mans Ultimate, and that lap time was pretty much the same as the one in AMS2 I did in lap 3. So when it comes to up to temperatures tires, they both feel as you would expect them to, and the lap times were pretty similar, but keeping in mind that it takes a bit longer to get those temperatures up in LMU. From that point onwards, the difference is the driving characteristics of both AMS2 and Le Mans Ultimate. Okay, and now onto the chase cam and TV cameras footage. When it comes to visuals and sounds, this is a very subjective topic and it's a personal preference more than anything else. You've seen them now both, you've heard them both, so you can decide for yourselves which one of the two you prefer more. I can tell that for me, when it comes to the TV comms, I actually think that Le Mans Ultimate have to change that. I think there is something off with the sound. I feel like when the car is at a distance, the sound is just too quiet, and this kind of directional sound, I think there is something missing. I'm watching the replay and sometimes I feel like the sound is coming from the wrong side, if that makes any sense. Again, it's early access, so I prefer how AMS2 sounds. And one thing I wanted to say, apologies for a little bit choppy video when it comes to AMS2. The issue was that I could not figure out a way for me to actually save a replay, and I did the laps obviously on my tripos, and in Le Mans Ultimate I just saved the replay, then I went on my single screen and I recorded it all in 4K. I could not do that in AMS2 because I could not figure out a way for me to actually save the replay. So basically what I had to do is as soon as I finished the laps, I paused the game, I went to instant replay, which is I think up to 2 minutes or something like that, and I just used OBS. But the issue is that obviously the screens and the recording are in two different refresh rates, and this is why the picture looks a little bit choppy. Okay, and now we are coming to perhaps the most important point of the comparison, and this is how both of these are simulating the hybrid system. The reason I'm saying it's perhaps the most important is because this is the unique characteristic these cars have in real life as well. When it comes to AMS2, prior to the 1.6 update, essentially how the system worked was delivering more boost or more power. So when you change the deployment in-game in the car, let's say from low to medium to high, essentially what that was doing was adding the electric motor was adding extra power to the combustion engine, so the total power output was basically increasing. Now, this is not how these cars are in real life. This is how ERS works in Formula 1, for example, but this is not how it works in GTPs. And I'm happy to see that with the 1.6 update, this has been changed and updated to resemble the real life. So what happens now is if you change from medium to high, your total power output does not change. So, the engine is not delivering all of a sudden more power, it's just draining more of the battery, which saves you fuel. However, when it comes to top-of-the-line simulation of the hybrid system today, nothing comes even close to Le Mans Ultimate. Not only it is simulated as it is in real life, but also if you look at the setup pages, so if you look at the AMS2, which is the one that I'm showing here, it is pretty bare bone. So the only options we have here to change is basically the engine braking and the boost pressure. That's it. There is not much else we can do. In car, you can adjust a little bit more, so you can change the deployment levels, low, medium, high, and so on and so on, but this is still limited compared to Le Mans Ultimate. Now, if I flip the page to Le Mans Ultimate, as you can see, now things are getting far more serious. So first of all, we have the virtual energy simulated here, and this is the only sim that does that today. And this is critical because, again, if you watched any WEC race, for instance, Basically, the virtual energy is in the center of all the strategies and every pit stop and all that. On top of that, you can manually manipulate, for example, the regen level as well as the electric motor map. So you can essentially change how much the battery delivers as well as how much regen. And on top of that, the way you manage this also changes the behavior of the car. So for instance, when your battery is completely full, your braking changes. So you cannot brake as late as you could if your battery is, let's say, somewhere in the middle. And it's the same if your battery is down to zero as well. So essentially, when you're racing the cars in Le Mans Ultimate, you have to manage your virtual energy as well as you have to manage your electric motor or the battery. You have to make sure it's never down to zero and it's never at 100%. I don't want to touch here on all other aspects of the simulation between AMS2 and Le Mans Ultimate. I'm not going to touch the chassis, the aero, and all the other stuff. I just wanted to cover how the hybrid system works in both of these sims. So overall, what do I think? Well, in my opinion, AMS2 and Le Mans Ultimate are the two sim racing titles we have today, which are simulating the GTPs or the LMDh cars the closest to reality. I think Reiza Studios have done an amazing job with the 1.6 update, and I'm very happy with the steps they have made forward. And at the end of the day, me, as well as many of us, unfortunately will never get a chance to drive these wonderful machines in real life. However, thanks to the efforts of Studio 397, Reiza, and all the other sim racing developers out there, we can get an idea of how these cars feel in real life. Now, if realism is what you're after, in my humble opinion, at the end of 2024, I think Le Mans Ultimate takes the crown. Their implementation of the LMDh and the LMH cars is by far the most sophisticated and I think the most close to reality out there. But what is your opinion? Which of the two do you prefer and why? Or maybe you prefer something else, for example iRacing. Let me know down in the comments below. And with that, thank you for watching. See you in the next one.